It was the most dangerous town in the Wild West. Outlaws, gamblers, and gunslingers all made their home in Deadwood, South Dakota. Miners had discovered a creek full of gold, and now the tiny town boomed with wild treasure seekers. Anyone who came into Deadwood was either fearless, crazy, or unduly naive. Nat Love was one of the fearless, a seasoned cowboy skilled in cattle ranging, shooting, and riding. Nat feared no man or beast. Riding slowly into Deadwood, all eyes turned to him. Who was this newcomer, and what was he going to do? Nat was born in a Tennessee slave cabin in 1854. After emancipation, Nat's parents remained on the plantation, working as sharecroppers. But Nat was done with the plantation. At 15 years old, Nat left home and found work as a cowboy at the Duval Ranch in the Texas Panhandle. Like many black men who have been previously enslaved in southern cattle country, Nat grew up herding cattle and riding horses. At the time of Nat Love, 1 in 4 cowboys were black, although you'd never know this from watching American Westerns. After the Civil War, white Southern ranchers returned to find their cattle lost or out of control. Desperate to round up their roaming cattle, the Southern ranchers hired the emancipated and highly skilled black cowhands. In fact, this is where the term cowboy comes from. White cattle workers were actually referred to as cowhands, but black cattle workers were called cowboys, and the term stuck in American vernacular. The ground shook as a stampede of cattle rumbled across the plain. Nat came up in the rear, fearlessly chasing the heavy, frantic animals. It was all in a day's work for a cowboy. Nat lived the classic Western way of life. He rode harsh desert trails, slept out under the stars, and fought off wild animals and dangerous cattle thieves. One day, Nat heard of a cowboy competition in Deadwood, South Dakota. A group of miners and gamblers had organized a roping contest and collected $200 in prize money. Even though Deadwood had a reputation as a dangerous mining town, Nat was not deterred. Each cowboy had to rope, throw, bridle, tie, and saddle a Mustang in the shortest time possible. Nat did all this in exactly 9 minutes from the crack of the gun. The other competitors didn't come close. Cleaning up the prize money, Nat wasn't finished. A shooting contest was arranged for the afternoon. Nat hits all of his rifle shots in the bullseye, 10 of his 12 pistol shots in dead center. Again, his nearest competitor didn't come close. The people of Deadwood looked at each other in disbelief. Then suddenly everyone broke out in a loud cheer. The rough and tumble Deadwood citizens gave Nat the nickname Deadwood Dick. While Nat loved his adventures in the open range, he knew that it couldn't last forever. The growing prominence of railroads and the invention of barbed wire decreased the need for cowboys. Since black Americans couldn't easily purchase land, this was a rough transition for many. Nat Love married his wife Alice in 1889 and moved to Denver, Colorado. He took a railroad job as one of the famous Pullman porters. Later in his life, Nat recounted his Wild West exploits in his autobiography, The Life and Adventures of Nat Love. Nat and his family eventually settled down in Southern California, where he passed away at the age of 67. Thanks for watching Deeper Than Red. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media.